Paul CHIBE, thanks for joining me. Let's talk Super Bowl. Anheuser-Busch has been the sole beer sponsor in the Super Bowl for the past 25 years.
Yes, since 1987.
Wow, so you're in it again obviously this year. Let's talk a little bit about what we can expect to see from Anheuser-Busch in the Super Bowl.
Well, this year we're continuing to use the Super Bowl as a platform to launch our new innovation. So we're going to kick it off with some spots for Budweiser Black Crown, which is a new, more upscale beer from the Budweiser brand. So that will be the first work that we present on air. And then we're going to get into a couple spots from Bud Light. And Bud Light has had this very fun campaign around superstitions that plays on that song by Stevie Wonder.
Yep.
And this year, set in New Orleans will be a couple spots. You know, the venue of the Super Bowl will be a couple spots that play on that whole theme and that truth of people with their superstitions to get their home team to win. We'll have a Clydesdale spot. We know that touches an emotional chord, and every year we get a lot of feedback that people love and want to see the Clydesdales in the Super Bowl. So this year we're bringing them even more prominently. Last year they were in a spot, in a role. This year, a story of a young Clydesdale and his relationship with his trainer will be one of our spots.
So the Clydesdales will be back. And how do you kind of decide to strike that balance between introducing new products? Last year you introduced Platinum, and this year you're introducing Black Crown. So how do you sort of strike that balance between introducing the new products but also, you know, highlighting the iconic brands that are always in the Super Bowl?
Well, for us, one of the things that we found, this is learning as we've gone through. We learned in the last year that the Super Bowl as a platform for innovation, to launch innovation, was extremely effective. And the core of it is that you have this huge audience that is watching that telecast with the intention of watching the commercials. So that brings an intrinsic efficiency to hitting your awareness objectives. So we think that as an investor in the Super Bowl, because we make a significant investment in the Super Bowl every year, to get the best balance and get the best return on that investment is a balanced approach, using it both for continuing to build the equity of our iconic brands like Bud Light, Budweiser, and then using it as a platform for bringing awareness to our new innovation like Black Crown, like this year in Beck Sapphire, and what we did last year with Bud Light Platinum.
How much do you want people to remember the individual brands and create distinction around each of those versus also at the same time sort of painting a full kind of broad picture of Anheuser-Busch, if you will, so that people come away with, you know, sort of an overall feeling or reaction to the company and its brands? Well,
I would say as a marketer, I'm more concerned about the individual relationships that people have with our individual brands. And I would say that there's, you know, you always hear that language, are you a house of brands or a branded house? Anheuser-Busch is a house of brands. And we want each one of those brands to have a distinct emotional connection with consumers. As a marketer though, you know, in the community, I want people to step back and say, okay, as a marketer, Anheuser-Busch understands the consumer, Anheuser-Busch is innovating in its approach to the Super Bowl, and Anheuser-Busch is being effective in what it does. And I think one of the things that is an important point for us is that when we advertise in the Super Bowl, you can very much fall into a trap of, I'm there to entertain.
Right.
We're there to entertain, but also build the brand.
Right.
Because if we don't do the latter, and then we don't connect back to what we want consumers to take away about our brand or drive the business objectives, we're not doing what we need to do for our shareholders in our investment in the Super Bowl.
So what will you be looking for coming out of the Super Bowl? You know, what metrics are you going to pay particular attention to? And what will you look at and be able to come away and say that was a success?
Well, for Black Crown and for Beck Sapphire, where we're measuring our effectiveness will be based upon two things: awareness and main message communication. Do they understand that what new Budweiser Black Crown is and what it stands for? And the same for Beck Sapphire, what Beck Sapphire is and what it stands for.
So you'll look at sales, obviously, right?
We'll look at sales, but we'll also look at the awareness build in the period right after the Super Bowl in the coming months.
In social media?
Social media measurement, how the level of engagement with the brands in social media.
Right.
With respect to the brands like Budweiser and Bud Light, which have almost a ubiquitous awareness. What we're measuring there is we have a lot. Anheuser-Busch is a company of metrics, and one of the things that we measure, we have where does that brand, how is it developed in the consideration ladder? You know, aware, consider, top 3, and favorite brand. And we look at, are we driving people's connection to have it become their favorite brand in a more, in a stronger, more powerful way?
Yeah.
So we'll be measuring how are we moving those brands in the consideration ladder with our work on the Super Bowl and going thereafter.
You mentioned social. Clearly the Super Bowl's changed a lot as a media event over the last couple of years, especially with the advent of social media and the involvement, if you will, of social media in the presentation of the ads and the engagement that is cultivated with the target audience. How has that changed how you view the success or the traction of an ad? And how has it changed your strategy? How have you incorporated the social media, acknowledged and obviously incorporated the social media component that's so vital and so real now with the Super Bowl advertising? How have you shifted strategy in light of that?
Well, I think the biggest shift in strategy has been around how we're preparing for activation against the Super Bowl with social media. And the main point is that in prior years, it wasn't necessarily a pillar of the activation against the marketing of the Super Bowl. Now, when you look at those who have been most effective, and even like work that we did in prior years on Bud Light Platinum, where hashtag Make It Platinum was a huge success. It was the number 2 most tweeted hashtag of the Super Bowl and thereafter. Is that you can't just leave it to be a coincidence. It has to be a thoughtful outcome of your approach and strategy to win in the Super Bowl. And so the thing that we do is that we make sure that we have a very methodical plan in terms of how we activate social, how we activate in PR, how we activate on television in the weeks going up to the Super Bowl, the day of the Super Bowl, and the period after the Super Bowl.
Sure. So how do you articulate the value of the Super Bowl for Anheuser-Busch? I mean, clearly you could walk away, conceivably you could walk away from it at any time if you chose to. But the brand is so, in the house of brands, as you say, is so uniquely intertwined with the game and with the NFL, for that matter. How does it vet out as far as value for your brand?
Well, I think the value for us comes from a very simple thing, in that what a brand is a collection of the things that you've done to make it what it is in consumers' minds. And we have, over the years, through the careful stewardship of these brands over decades and over centuries, have turned them into American icons. And the reason these brands are iconic is because where you are often says what you are. And when you're in events like Super Bowl and you're exclusive, those are iconic events, and that permits us to continue to build the iconography of the brand. So yeah, I could walk away, but 10 years from now, 20 years from now, we might not be the iconic brands. So we look at it this way. We are generational stewards of the brands that we have. Budweiser is a over 100-year-old brand. Bud Light is a decades-old brand. We have brands in our portfolio that date to the 1200s. Our responsibility is to generationally continue those things. And for Bud Light and Budweiser and for Anheuser-Busch, part of that generational stewardship is to do things like the Super Bowl and make those investments so those brands survive over time and become and remain icons.